Starstruck.
All right, ready?
Yep.
Okay. Hello and welcome to Joyride. I am Jared Brandon Flandy, and
I am Adam Mendenhall.
this is the podcast where we talk about all things transportation, vehicles, and adventure. How you doing, Adam?
I am well. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good here. So we, in the past, have done lots of car episodes. We've done a bit of aviation. We've done only one ship story, something nautical themed. So this is, however, going to be completely nautical themed, this particular episode. In fact, this is probably going to be our first two-parter as well. So the title of this is Life on the High Seas, Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, the reason why this is going to be a two-parter is because this script is long, because I chose this topic because, there's ships and whatnot and pirates. I was like, that'll be cool. And part of the reason I chose it is I don't have to dig for a lot of information. That's pretty well-known stuff. Where I made my mistake was I had to sort through 300 years of history.
Well, that's a lot to sort through.
Yeah. And it was what can I take out, at least what is pertinent to this. And so that, in the end, still ended up being twice as long as our usual scripts. But I was like, that's all right. We'll just do two of these. So we'll start off, of course, with number one, though. So are you ready for a nautical and scurvy-sounding themed episode?
Always.
Okay. Okay. So, too bad we don't have any rum. That would add to the... so if you do have rum and you're not driving, have some rum while you listen to this one.
Indeed. That would be a nice compliment to the story.
Add to the atmosphere here. So, the sea has fascinated humans for time immemorial. Most of us are content to simply look upon it and enjoy the sights and sounds, but for others, this will never be enough. This passion and curiosity has led many to create vessels large and small to see what is beyond the horizon that seems to never end. These brave nautical pioneers would begin new lives by discovering new lands that had yet to be settled. In other words, sometimes curiosity is just too much to pass up. In order for a mariner to go on a joyride, they need a vessel to do so. Sea travel most likely developed independently among different cultures. And as an example, a reed boat from about 7,000 years ago has been discovered in Kuwait.
Wow.
Now, of course, the first vessels were probably just somebody jumped on a log and went down a river. But by this point, this is the first, this is a purpose-built watercraft, okay? The cultures of the Mesopotamian region in Egypt started out building simple reed boats as well, but they soon began to build more sophisticated ships. Early seafaring and trade stayed close to the shores because the oldest of ancient ships could not withstand the conditions of the open sea. So they're refined, well-designed ships, but they got to stick close to the shore. So if you've ever played Civilization, those first early boats, you can't go actually out in the sea.
You can't.
So even though sailors like this, even though sailors like this have always tried to avoid the most dangerous parts of the sea, the reality is that shipwrecks are as old as sailing itself. The oldest known shipwrecks have been discovered in the Mediterranean. Some of these wrecks have been dated to the Bronze Age, which was about 2000 BC to 700 BC. Always been whoopsies, in other words. These ancient ships have provided a plethora of archaeological artifacts that prove that advanced sea trading was being practiced at this point in antiquity. The Phoenicians, who originated from modern-day Lebanon and Syria, are regarded by modern historians to have been amazing sailors. Aside from founding cities in North Africa such as Carthage, it's believed the Phoenicians were the first people to successfully sail around Africa, which is a long ways.
That's a long ways.
If we were to fire up our flux capacitors and travel to the 11th century AD, we would make the acquaintance of the Vikings. Even though the Vikings have a reputation for being raiders and marauders, they were far more skilled at being expert mariners. The Vikings successfully traveled as far as Russia and established colonies in Iceland, Greenland, and Norseman Leif Erikson was the first known European to set foot upon North America in 1001, 499 years before Columbus.
Wow.
As famous as Columbus is, there is another mariner exploring the world's oceans. He was a Chinese explorer and eunuch named Zheng He. During his adventures, he commanded a fleet that consisted of at least 300 ships, and his voyages took him as far as India and Africa. So in a sense, he did have some balls. Now, he's an interesting character. We'll probably do one on him at some point. But new developments in China would cause problems for Zheng He's voyages, however. China began to adopt isolationist policies that were encouraged by Confucian scholars who felt Zheng He's voyages were too expensive to be considered practical. As a result, his exploration program was canceled. If China had not done this, it may well have colonized North and South America instead of Europe. So there would have been a Chinese New World instead. But it's kind of like NASA having, NASA's budget's nothing compared to the military, for example.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
The same thing happened to this guy, basically. With time, though, Europeans did reach the Americas again on October 9th, 1492, when Italian Cristoforo Colombo landed on the island of Hispaniola in the Caribbean Sea. Colombo, and not the detective, better known as Columbus in English, would return to the area more than once and begin colonizing the new area for the Spanish Empire, predominantly with the promise of bringing gold back to Spain.
Ooh.
So shiny stuff that really has no practical value, but we love so much for some reason.
Of course.
Despite these return trips, Columbus continued to believe he had landed on islands off the coast of Asia and not come to the realization that he had tripped across lands that were largely unknown to Europeans. He doesn't know he's discovered a continent or an area. He thinks he's in Asia. Despite some successes, Columbus in the end did bring back the amount of gold he did not bring back the amount of gold he promised, which did not make the crown back in Spain pleased with him at all. To add to this, his treatment of the native population that he was colonizing was so bad, even by 15th century standards, that his reputation declined even more.
Wow.
As a result, the Spanish crown stripped him of his titles, and eventually Columbus would die a disgraced and penniless man. His reputation would only be revived by Italian Americans in the 20th century, only for it to be reduced again in the early 21st century. So, this people get all worked up about, we're not doing Columbus Day like we did and all this stuff. Well, even in his lifetime, he was considered a douche, to put it lightly. And he was largely not very well known until some Italian people in New York went, oh, this will make, that was when the mafia was really big and all that. So they needed good PR more, essentially. And so we'll use this guy.
Yeah, well, we have the highlights of the history book, but then there's the more in-depth dark side, which you just hinted on.
Even though Columbus himself did not believe he had found a previously unknown world, others were not so sure. The evidence for this can be seen on every world map today. Another Italian explorer named Amerigo Vespucci theorized correctly that Columbus had found two new continents and not islands off the coast of Asia. A German map maker named Martin Waldseemüller, that's my best guess, was intrigued by Vespucci's insight and named the two continents after him using the Latinized version of his name. This is why we have North America and South America and not North Columbia and South Columbia. So, with all these realizations flooding in, Europeans began flooding into the Americas as well. The Spanish, of course, were the first to get the upper hand, and eventually they claimed all the land surrounding the Caribbean. This eventually became known as the Spanish Main. It did not take long for other Europeans to claim lands that were not their own. The French, Dutch, and English began to form their own colonies in the Caribbean. Relations could be tense among all of them, but the two who liked to scrap the most were the Spanish and the English. And they still do when all those English people go down there for a holiday.
I bet.
There was a problem, though. Utilizing a navy was so far from the mother country was a difficult and expensive process, so the governors of the colonies turned to a more creative solution. They began issuing documents called, quote, letters of marque to sailors in the Caribbean. These letters allowed them to attack enemy ships and plunder whatever they had on board. These mercenaries of the water were referred to as privateers, and by allowing this, the early period of the pirate age had begun and initially approved by the law itself.
Wow. So, at the beginning, it's there's some legality there.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, like we're at war with the Spanish, you go and plunder and raid, and you have this little letter that says you're legally allowed to do so. Wow. State-sponsored thievery, essentially.
Interesting beginnings.
According to historian Kenneth Kiner, quote, pirates of the period, 1680 to 1725, were at war with every country on the face of Earth. We estimate that there was between 5,000 and 10 individuals involved in piracy, one way or another, under the command of 70 different captains, which is not as much as I'd think. So not everyone became a pirate, apparently. Life as a privateer could be very dangerous, but it could also be very lucrative. Consequently, it did not take long for certain privateers to not only attack enemy ships of the mother country, but any ship in general that potentially had the booty and treasure. But maybe, I don't know,
maybe both.
Maybe. Thus, the image of the pirate that we think of was born. When a pirate ship sets its eye on the prize, it was not uncommon for them to fly the flag of a friendly country in order to lower the guard of the other ship. So if it's a Spanish ship, whoever Spain's allied with, throw that flag up.
Sure, but that would be a nice little tactic to diffuse the situation, to camouflage.
And yes, once the ship was close, they would raise actual pirate flags. So it's not just something from the movies, okay? The earliest flags were solid red, but with time, the famous image of the black flag with a skull and crossbones was used in order to send a clear and psychologically terrifying message. Despite the popular image of pirates roaming around in grand galleons, this is not exactly accurate, a galleon being a little big ship. Most pirates preferred to use a small ship called a sloop. These ships had a single mast and could be as long as 70 feet. Pirates liked sloops because they were small, fast, and swift. So it's like you're gonna rob someone on the highway with a UPS truck, or are you gonna do it in a little sports car?
Yeah.
Much like car enthusiasts, pirates would modify their ships in order to make them more sporty and faster. Improving the sails for better propulsion was just one of many modifications these masterful seafarers made to their vessels. Even though pirates would fight with pistol and sword, they tried to inflict as much damage as they could to the enemy ship beforehand, as no one wants to get stabbed or shot, so you do it from a distance, okay? This was mostly done by firing cannonballs. Some of these were the round ones that are popularly pictured, while other types of cannonballs included what are known as, quote, grape shot.
Oh.
So, no, these were not shots of booze or anything like that, but instead were two metal balls attached together with a chain and were specifically designed to wrap around a ship's mast to more effectively break the mast, thus rendering a ship immovable.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Packing a punch.
Packs a punch, exactly. Whatever cannonballs you did use, the idea was not only to damage the ship, but to damage the other crew, since cannonballs would typically cause explosive splintering that sunk into the flesh of the defensive crew.
Ew.
Yeah, so it's gruesome, but that's one way of just eliminating more, you have to fight less. Most pirates generally were in their 20s and 30s, but even if they had youthful energy, a lot of them did not sword fight at first, but instead preferred a flintlock pistol. This was usually the first weapon a pirate would use, but they would resort to their famous cutlass as backup if their pistols backfired or were simply out of ammunition. So we all love pirate movies because they're sword fighting, but they didn't actually sword fight very much. It was like, oh, shit, I'm out of bullets, basically.
Rely on that old black powder.
Mm-hmm. While all this was going on, Spain remained the number one power in the New World due to the amount of gold they stole from the Incas and Aztecs. They would typically take this gold and melt it down to make coinage. These Spanish coins were called pieces of 8, or pesos, otherwise known as doubloons. Spanish doubloons are considered to be the world's first international currency, and it's been thought that the English word dollar is a corruption of doubloon. And I believe that the sign, I'm trying to remember this, but on those coins was 2 pillars, and there was another symbol that kind of went through the middle of those, and so that's probably the origin of the dollar sign as well.
Oh, interesting.
It was something like that. Spain would send entire treasure ships back to Europe, and as a result, this attracted the attention of thieves as much as it attracted women to theaters when the Barbie movie came out in 2023.
That's saying something.
Yeah, did you see it?
Not in the theater. I have seen the movie since it's been released on physical media, but I did not see it in the theater. I saw the crowds of people. I was coming out of Oppenheimer at the time, and my God, that Barbie movie was just at capacity and beyond.
I went to see Oppenheimer the day it came out. It was at that theater in Bridgeport, and I had to come out. I went to get a drink or something partway through the movie, and the Barbie movie was coming in, and I came out of the other movie and just was presented with a sea of pink in the lobby.
Yep. Both men and women were pinked beyond belief. It was a total sea of pink.
Oh my God! I mean, it
was a movement.
It was a movement.
Yep.
So, one privateer who was fond of attacking Spanish treasure ships was Sir Francis Drake. Drake, on one occasion, captured a Spanish ship called the Cagafuego, which netted him a haul of about $20 million in today's money. His ego was so obtuse, he famously did not kill the defeated Spanish captain, but instead treated him to a grand feast on board just to rub it in a little more.
Jeez.
That'd be an awkward day.
That would be super awkward.
Even though the public imagination usually sees pirates attacking other ships, this was not the case, however. Some pirates would attack... This is not always the case, however. Some pirates would sack entire port towns. Doing this had great risks, but with great risks comes great rewards. Englishman Captain Henry Morgan... He's the leg guy on the bottle. That's it. Was one particular privateer who was willing to risk it all for fortune and glory. Captain Morgan, this is really weird to say, set his sights on the wealthiest city in the New World, Panama City.
Ooh.
The Spanish had gotten tired of dealing with the English pirates attacking their gold ships, so they decided to keep a large amount of gold in a depository in an area that a Caribbean pirate could not easily reach, which was a city built on the Pacific coast in Central America. It was Panama City. It's a little sliver right there. So it's like it's cut off from the Caribbean just barely. So the only way they're going to be able to get there, it's going to be hard. So that's why they put it there. In order for any pirates to reach the treasured city, they'd either have to sail around the southern tip of South America, which is a long ways, obviously, and dangerous, or cross over 80 miles of jungle on foot in Central America. The Spanish assumed that no pirate would ever be so stupid to attempt either of these dangerous options, but unfortunately, they would be gravely mistaken. Captain Morgan amassed a fleet of 38 ships and a crew of 2,000 men, but he was not intending to sail around South America. He was going to make the arduous trip across the jungle to Panama City. They initially traveled up the Chagres River in small boats, but once the river began to dry up, they continued the journey by foot. What was left of the river was full of bugs and leeches. And when the crew was not dealing with these things, some of them were slowly picked off by natives who were anonymously attacking them from the edges of the jungle, spears and bows and arrows and stuff. Resources became so scarce that Captain Morgan eventually gave the order that the crew should eat their belts and shoes in order to not starve.
Oh, my belts and shoes.
Leather.
Wow, yeah.
Only 9 days into the expedition, 800 crewmen had already died.
Oh, my God.
Do you think this is going well?
Yeah, not quite.
Not quite. Shoeless and spirits low, along with pants low, what was left of the pirates managed to make it to Panama City. They surprisingly fought a good fight and managed to capture the city, but to their surprise, there was not much gold to be found.
Oh, what a disappointment.
By torturing the Spaniards, they managed to find a decent amount of gold, but everyone was unaware of a little fact. When the pirates were attacking, a Catholic monk took a large amount of the gold and hid it in the altar of a church. He even hastily painted it white in order for it to attract less attention. The ruse worked because the English pirates ran right by it even as the paint was still drying.
Wow.
This is something out of Benny Hill.
It is.
I can hear the song.
Yeah. So can I.
By the time they left the city, the pirates had managed to loot about $3 million in today's money, which sounds like a lot, but it did not end up being much when it was dispersed between all the crew members. When Captain Morgan returned to Port Royal in Jamaica, he was not hailed as a hero, but was instead arrested since England was no longer at war with Spain.
Jeez.
So he missed the memo, basically.
Big time.
He was sent to London to stand trial, but public opinion of him was so high that he was not only forgiven for his piracy crimes, but instead was sent back to Port Royal and appointed its new governor. There is just some guys in this world that can just screw up left and right and still come out ahead. And I'd never have understood it.
Me either. It just seems like no matter what they do, somehow they come out clean on the other end. Yeah.
So, Captain Morgan did not attend many government meetings, however. Imagine that. Since he spent most of his time drinking in taverns with his buddies. He eventually died on August 25th, 1688, from what his doctor described as the cause of death was drink and lack of sleep. Basically, he said he partied too hard, and that's why he died. But his funeral was well attended, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure he met a few characters in his time.
Now, pirates did not spend all of their time at sea. They usually had a home port they routinely returned to in order to get more supplies or recruit more men if they needed. Some of the more well-known pirate islands included Jamaica, as mentioned, and Trinidad and Tobago. Now, during the golden age of piracy, Port Royal could be described as the Las Vegas of the Caribbean, but on steroids. A priest from England who had recently arrived in Jamaica described Port Royal like this, quote, "Since the majority of the population consists of pirates, cutthroats, whores, and some of the vilest persons in the whole world, I felt my presence there was at no permanent use." He left.
Oh, jeez.
One thing that pirate movies always get correct is that pirates loved taverns, and there was plenty of them in towns like Port Royal. One of the most common archaeological finds from the city are onion-shaped wine bottles, pewter tankards, and remnants of clay pipes. Drinking and smoking.
Drinking and smoking.
Yep.
Some things never change.
Pirates were so bad with money that they mostly spent it on alcohol, so this is why tavern-related objects are usually the only pirate artifacts that are commonly found. Not all pirates drank, though. Bartholomew Roberts, for instance, preferred to drink tea. Interesting. Little glass bottles that contain what can only be assumed to be some type of hangover cure are common artifacts, since pirates probably woke up every morning with a raging headache for most of their existence.
One would think,
Yeah.
yes.
Pirates did indeed drink rum, but they probably drank just as much wine as they did rum. Taverns were not just mere alcohol dispensaries, though. They were the internet and social media hubs of their time, and a considerable amount of pirate recruiting took place in taverns as well. Finding new pirates was not a hard thing to do, since many people were leaving England to come to the New World. During this period in the Old Country, crime was not tolerated in the slightest. Harsh sentences were given even for the most petty of crimes, such as stealing a handkerchief. Many people in the Old World thought if stealing in England was so risky, you might as well go to the Caribbean, where great tales of riches and adventure would make stealing far more worth the risk. And that is the end of part 1. What do you think so far?
Well, the monetary aspect of it is interesting. You think about their motivations, and again, as you just explained, how they spend a majority of their money reflects a lot what we've seen in some Disney movies in the past, I guess you could say, to a point.
The movies do get some things right, yeah.
But yeah, you think about the precedence of wine and rum and, accessibility of those things. But again, the taverns, being absolutely the social media hub of its day, as you well put. It truly had to be. That was the meeting place for so many people where they'd come together, and again, recruitment and so forth.
And they probably needed to recruit a lot, as we've been seeing, because the chance of dying was pretty high.
Yeah, your longevity was fairly limited in those days. I think 30 was an old man, right?
So 30 is an old man, plus you're getting shot at and potentially stabbed and
starvation,
eating shoes and belts.
Yeah, exactly. In the pursuit of the gold. Yeah.
I'm sure 100 years from now, someone there's someone 100 years now, because time's fluid, right? We've watched enough Back to the Future. Mm-hmm. There's someone right now 100 years from now going, God, I would not want to live in 2024. I know that'd be awful. Okay.
Yep.
But I look back at this and I go, why would you want to live past 30?
It would be a hard life.
It's like, if you could get into the DeLorean, this is the other thing I think of too, is you get in the DeLorean, you blast your way into Port Royal, okay? You open up the gull-wing door, you and me get out. Can you imagine the smell?
No, that's the one thing. I think we take for granted in this current day and in modern times in general of just sanitation, right? I can't imagine, just even in the general tavern, walking through that door where people are smoking, there's not fresh air. What would that smell like?
Your only source of light or heat is through fire, so there'd be smoke everywhere.
Everywhere.
Okay, everyone. There's no deodorant.
No.
People are washing. They take a bath once a month. There's horses are the main mode of transport, so there's streets are full of shit, literally.
So many levels to it. Yeah.
So we'd probably get out of the DeLorean and just barf instantly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would be one of the most intriguing things, I think, is the air quality, right?
Mm-hmm. The ships, like I was reading there, that interests me though, because I had that image in my mind too, the big pirate ship, and a smaller ship just kind of makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah, shipbuilding though is fascinating on its own. What they were able to achieve back then, and the craftsmanship, the methods of the day,
the level of craftsmanship, it's amazing. I didn't go too deep into that, but just all the carpentry skills and the sailing skill. Yeah,
even with AI today, it's just there's things we've lost. I don't think we'll ever get back when it comes to some of that hands-on craftsmanship. It's just it's lost in time.
Well, the other thing too, I think, is I kind of relate this to even just 60 years ago. There's no TV, there's no radio, there's no TikToks, Instagrams. What else you got to do?
That's it.
Yeah.
And for, millennia to a point, it was the local watering hole, mm-hmm. right? That's where the action was at. That was the entertainment hub. That's where you plugged in. You had
nothing else to do but to drink and make stuff.
That's it.
Well, on that note, I think we'll bring this one to a close, but we will be back with part 2, and we're going to learn even more about Pirates of the Caribbean. Sound good, Adam?
Yep, sounds good. We'll ride the next wave then.
Nice one. All right, on that pun, signing out.